Hi, everybody. Has everyone left? It's quite full before. How are you doing? You're good? Thank you, Noel, for sharing what you did. A very serious topic. And we're going to move from passion to purpose. And I don't know, we're saying that it's going to be a heated discussion. No, not heated? You sure? Okay. So I'm just wondering if we could just move our state a little bit. Could we stand up? Could we stand up a bit? Yes? All right. Could you close your eyes? Close your eyes a bit. And we take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And while you do that, can you think of a place that you want to visit, maybe a dream holiday destination, maybe the beach? And then while you do that, can you take another deep breath in? A deep breath in and out. One more time. Deep breath in, thinking about the place where you want to travel to. All right, looking lovely. Have a seat before we start our session. Is Lilianne around? Okay, wonderful. That's okay. Lilianne. Okay. So before Lilianne comes onto the stage, going for a coffee just now, is it? Come. How many of you want to start a social enterprise or work for an NGO? Anyone can raise of hands? You'd like to. It's interesting, I'm asking this question because as a consultant, there are a lot of micro businesses, etc., that want to start, and they also want to have a very strong social angle to it. So if you'd like to be involved in social work or social enterprises, NGOs, or want to start a business with a social angle, this is the right panel to be in. All right, but before that, I'd like to introduce our wonderful panelists. Welcome, Lilianne. Lilianne is a cultural anthropologist, and you're a humanitarian professional, right? And she has 20 years of experience working with refugees, particularly the Rohingyas, is correct? And internally displaced persons and conflict-stricken communities. And you are also a co-founder of the Gintanyo, I pronounced that well, which means all of us, correct, in Achenese? Yes, and it is a regional humanitarian organization that's based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Welcome, Lilianne. And then we have Shao-Lyn now, the co-owner of Eat, Shoots and Roots, which is ESR. It is a social enterprise aimed at reconnecting urbanites with the skills and tools to grow their own food, right? So if you like agriculture, sustainability, please, you can ask questions to Shinlo as well, Shao-Lyn. And after completing her MA in graphic design, she discovered permaculture. That's right. And the site Embun Pagi, is that still around? No, okay. And was surprised by how little she knew about cultivating food and started ESR. And finally, the lady with the lovely sari at the end there is Sumitra Selvaraj. And she is in charge of the PR and partnerships for Breast Cancer Welfare Association of Malaysia, that's correct. And she's a dedicated advocate in this area. And she's also internationally recognized as a creative fiction writer as well. That's right. And then I think in Singapore, you won one of the prizes that was a piece that titled Recoil in 2018. And if you're interested in saris, she also has a wonderful Instagram account called Saris and Stories. So follow her there as well. So welcome, ladies. In a world where a lot of businesses now are moving into sustainability and social work, it's really important that we coexist together, from corporate to SMEs and so on. And I just want to put in a few statistics in terms of social entrepreneurship. I think in 2018, the government, there's a lot of statistics, not so accurate sometimes, but in 2018, there are about 20,000 social entrepreneurs, or at least entities in Malaysia, but only 400 are actually confirmed as social enterprises, right, or registered. And I think in 2025, they want to move that up to 500. So before we talk more about social entrepreneurship and passion, I just want to ask each one of you, if I gave you one plane ticket, right, today, to travel to one part of the world where we could learn more about socially driven entities, where would it be? Because we still have a lot to learn about social entrepreneurship and moving our passion to purpose. And there are a lot of other countries that are much more mature in this area than we are. Can we start with Sumitra?
I'm still thinking about the place that you made us think about 5 minutes ago, so I haven't really moved that out of my head. But if I had to think about where I'd like to go, I think just based on my own comfort level in terms of what I've read, I'd really like to go to India. Simply because there's a very, very large range, a span of different kind of social enterprises and non-profit organizations that cover a wide range of causes. And I think there's a lot to learn from the diversity that they have there. So that's where I'd go.
India. All right. Shao-Lyn, where would you go so that we can, women out here and the gentlemen out here can seek inspiration maybe to travel to as well?
I think I would look into traveling to Taiwan. I haven't been to Taiwan before, but from what I hear, there's a strong co-op movement where there are communities that work in cooperative settings. Mm-hmm. So I'd be really interested to see that happen because in Malaysia it's still quite young. I think there's Kongsi Co-op here, which is trying to move into that, and they took a lot of guidance from Taiwanese organizations as well. So yes.
Thank you. Taiwan, India, Taiwan. Lilianne, how about you?
It's quite a hard question for me because I work a lot with refugees who are, fleeing from conflict. So I think it has to be then in a host country where refugees have fled to, and trying to find a place that acknowledges the contribution that refugees can make. And I mean, sadly, there aren't that many places in the world that do that, but I would say that I go a lot to Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a country where, although there isn't legal recognition of refugees, the local organizations in Bangladesh who have done such wonderful, inspiring work for their own citizens are also really working hard to do that for refugees as well. So that is a country that I absolutely love and admire. They're going through a lot right now, but I would always welcome another plane ticket to go to Bangladesh. So.
Wonderful. So they shared countries that we can learn from. And usually, the purpose that we want to put forth or work in, it's usually a passion, stems from some form of passion or being connected to something that you want to fight for. So I'd like to ask the panelists, maybe Shao-Lyn, let's start with you. What you're doing right now, tell the audience a little bit about Eat Shoots and Roots. And did it start from passion? And how long have you been in this business? And is the passion still burning?
That's a lot of questions.
Yes, it is. I'm going to remind you what it is.
Yeah. Okay, so Eat Shoots and Roots, we are moving into our 13th year. And every time I say this, people ask me, like, how old are you? I am very old. When I started it with our co-founders, I didn't have white hair. I now have white hair. So when we started 12 to 13 years ago, for me, it wasn't really from a place of passion. It was from a place of wanting to learn and wanting to explore, because I did not have any experience whatsoever with agriculture, with growing, with gardening. But when I visited my co-founder's space at that time, Embun Pagi that you were talking about, I was very disappointed with myself because I couldn't identify anything. She was telling me all these things that she was growing there, and I had no idea what she was talking about. And I felt that it was very important for me to learn. So from there was the opportunity for me to join them as a designer, because my background is in design, to design all their comms materials and all that. And from there, I learned about agriculture. So it was a conscious interest in learning. In terms of passion, again, the passion, it wasn't driven by passion. It was driven by a need. And I felt that this knowledge that I was discovering, it was also very important for my peers to understand and to know, and for us as a community to understand our food, how to grow it, because one of the ideas I had was like, oh, in the time of apocalypse, when when the world collapses, then at least we can grow our own food. And I think during the pandemic, when it happened, I was like, it's our time to shine, because now I have all this knowledge, of how to grow, and if anything happens, I can grow food for you. But actually, surprisingly, people got into gardening, but an observation was that people also came together, and it wasn't really as horrible as I thought. People cooperated, people were willing to learn about gardening, but everyone was also very willing to share. So I think my perspective on the need to grow our own food has also changed a bit. It's not so much to become a prepper in the time of apocalypse, but actually to understand and to share with everyone the kinds of things that we can grow as a community and help each other out in that way.
And is the passion, well, it didn't start from passion. Did you have any, did it create any passion around, along the way?
I think the thing that, maybe passion for me it's not so much a very accurate word, but it is probably grit. Because passion, okay, I'm passionate about music, I enjoy it, but if you ask me, am I passionate about digging holes in the ground and planting things? Not necessarily lah, it's really hot out there, I get a bad tan all the time, right. My skin is like so bad, I need to wear sunblock. So yeah, I think it's more of grit. I do it because I feel it's important and I need to do it rather than I'm passionate about digging holes, no. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Shao-Lyn. The reason why I'm asking this question is all across the board, when I network with individuals, it's usually about passion. And what we're trying to put forth right now is whatever you put yourself in, and whether it's an NGO or social enterprise, be very aware that it's a lot deeper than passion, the work that goes into it. So I'd like to ask Sumitra, you have a background in broadcasting, right? And you have Sorry Stories. And now you're doing PR, in the area of breast cancer awareness. How did you make that transition? Because I'm sure there are a lot of people who are doing things now, but want to go into the area of social entrepreneurship or NGO. How do you make that transition?
So I've worked in communications for 25 years now, and I've worked in various aspects of communications. I've worked, as Alleena mentioned, as a broadcaster, as a presenter, as a producer, as a director. I've worked in publishing as a writer, as an editor. I've worked in public relations for various organizations, both corporate as well as non-profit. And my goal throughout my entire career thus far has been this simple idea of taking medicine, science, and translating what the essence of the science is into something that the layperson doesn't fear. And I've done this in a variety of ways, whether it's been by show running television talk shows for Astro, or by leading public relations for pharmaceutical companies, or by working with nonprofits. My goal has always been the same. My goal has been to take the science and translate it into what the audience will accept willingly, because a lot of the times we find that medical topics, anything to do with healthcare, doesn't go down a treat with an audience unless they have a personal investment into it. So yeah, that's how I kind of found myself at some point. I've worked in healthcare communications specifically for the last 15 years on both sides of the divide, on corporate as well as nonprofit. And about 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to kind of consult and do a little bit of background work for the Breast Cancer Welfare Association Malaysia, which I work with. And about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, they asked me whether I'd be interested in a more permanent position, and the answer was yes, please.
Thank you for that, because you also used your know-how from broadcasting to simplify a message. So whatever you're doing right now, in order to probably transition to something like a social cause, that would be a good direction to go into. Lilianne, you are working with refugees, and incredibly challenging in Malaysia. Let's move on to being a part of a social cause and making it sustainable. I mean, even if you started for a year, I mean, how did you make your foundation sustainable all this while? What's key in making it sustainable, especially in the area of refugees?
Thanks, Alleena. So I think the key thing for me and for us as an organization, we're not actually a foundation in Malaysia. So we call ourselves foundation because, in fact, we started in Aceh, in Indonesia. And there we are a yayasan. We're not a yayasan here. Here we're actually registered as a business, but we do non-profit. So we're a non-profit organization. But I would say even more important than financial sustainability, what's made us more sustainable is the inclusion and absolute equality with the people we work with and for. So I'm a minority in my organization. I'm actually one of 3 Malaysians. We have 3 Malaysian all women who are in the organization, and everybody else in the organization, we have about 12 of us, are refugees, including in the leadership. So my co-director, I'm actually now co-director, and I was director until about a month ago. We switched to a co-director structure, and my co-director is a Rohingya refugee. So he's not legal here. He has a UNHCR card, but he is absolutely, the, person in the organization who's helped us design all our programs, and it's the reason why our programs are effective, because he is from the community, he knows the community, he understands how refugees, and I think particularly the Rohingya community that's still illiterate, for the most part, especially the older generation that wasn't born here, that was born in Myanmar and in Bangladesh, they communicate in a different way. So even during the pandemic, for example, the challenge we had was, how do you even get messaging out to these communities? Number one, refugees actually in Malaysia are from about 52, 53 countries. It's not, just Myanmar or just Palestine or Syria or 1 or 2 countries. It's literally 54 countries with so many languages. Translating, the languages, all of that information that we all needed, to think about how you communicate to the public, which is already very diverse in Malaysia. How do you communicate the same level of messaging and diversity to all those languages? And then Rohingya, it had to be oral, right? Nothing written. So if you don't understand even the way a community operates, thinks, makes decisions within themselves, understands messaging, how do you even start to work? And I think there are a lot of things that, those of us who've been trained in certain professions, my humanitarian background has been extremely useful, but it's only a part of it. It's only a part of it. So I think that really the decision for us that made us extremely, that's made us sustainable, has been that decision to have absolute equality between refugees and non-refugees, and the leadership, all the way into the leadership and the decision-making structure. That, I think, is what sets Gatanio apart, and we take the name very seriously because the whole ethos of it is equality, and we're all in this together. That's mutual responsibility for each other and for the services that we provide, and accountability as well.
And that's really interesting because it sounds that it's very strategic as well. There's a lot of insights, which I think a lot of social entrepreneurs as well as NGOs here can learn from. Because the narrative is always about funding and money. Almost all the time. I do consultation for almost a lot of NGOs and SEs. Can you share a little bit more about, why shouldn't they depend so much on grants and, raising funds and just focusing on that? Why shouldn't they?
I mean,
because that's the top.
Yeah,
narrative,
I would say we, of course, had those same challenges as well, right? We did need to think about the sustainability in terms of financing, but I think that part of the journey was easier when it was very clear that we were being effective, that we had a strategy that was actually effective, and when we got that part right, everything eventually started to move, right? Because, I think in the non-profit world it's a bit hard because it is grant dependent. You need to go to this embassy or you need to go to that donor. But eventually we found, and we're very lucky now, we're fully on philanthropic funding. We were on, sort of embassy and, government funding, EU and other funding for a long time. And it was quite exhausting because the reporting requirements are, really quite demanding. And we just kept wishing that we would have, the right kind of partner who would really see what we were trying to do and sort of give us, multi-year support. And actually, we're really lucky now because we have that. We've finally been able to find that. But I think the only reason we were able to find it wasn't because we wrote a better grant. It was because we could show that we really had a strategy that was effective to the communities. And I think when donors came out to see that, when the partners, we don't even call them our donor, when our partners came out to see that, they could see that the community was so comfortable with us and give us access that most other organizations may not even have. And the reason for that was because we have very well trained but very well rooted and grounded individuals in the organization from a lived experience of being a refugee and being from that community who could see things and tell you things which somebody like myself, years working in this humanitarian crisis and that humanitarian crisis, I would never be able to see those things, right? So I think that's actually the more important piece of it. Then, of course, all the other things, your management structure and everything, that makes things more sustainable organizationally. But if you don't have the strategy right and your approach really, absolutely effective in a genuine way that is really having an impact in the community, then, I think that's the biggest piece of it.
Thank you. So strategy and moving from grant-based to philanthropy. Actually, there are two different funding strategies. For those of you out there or those of you thinking about it, planning is critical. I'd like to move to Shao-Lyn. Just some statistics. I think it's more of a gauge. Probably there's less than 1% of social enterprises that are actually sustainable financially in Malaysia. And looking at the work that I do, I think that number is quite accurate. So Shao-Lyn, in terms of success, how do you define it for each Shoots and Roots? Of course, it's always money. Usually, it's money. So how did you define success and come all this way to survive and to be sustainable?
Right. I think we're still questioning how we define success.
Okay.
Because I guess there's two angles to it. One is financially sustainable, right? If we can continue yet another year and still survive and be able to pay everyone, then that's considered a success. But then nowadays, I guess we're also looking into the data of the work that we do because it is driven by an environmental perspective that we want to do something for the environment through edible gardening. So I guess we've started looking into trying to see if we can calculate how much waste have we diverted from the landfills by composting it? Or how much carbon have we sequestered by growing these vegetables, which is still an area of discovery for us and exploration. We're still trying to see how we can do that. It's still not a very clear area for us, but we are looking into how we can get that data and also be able to account for it through the work that we do.
Thank you for that. I would like to ask Sumitra and move from strategy to profitability funding into coexisting as a community, Sumitra, because this is what I see a lot of. So from breast cancer awareness, refugee work, agriculture, there are many entities doing the same thing, and there are also a lot fighting amongst each other. I'll say that out loud, meaning, they don't work together. Sumitra, how can we bring communities together? Because together, for example, in the area of breast cancer awareness, agriculture, and refugees, if we do work together, it's a lot more powerful from my point of view. Can you give us some perspective?
Why you give me the controversial question?
Because I know you will answer straight and head on.
Okay, so I'm going to begin by tagging on to what you asked Shao-Lyn with regards to, because my answer has to do with sustainability as well. Sustainability then leads into working together. So the goal of the Breast Cancer Welfare Association Malaysia, we're a 38-year-old nonprofit, and the goal, my personal goal, my boss is not in the audience so I can say this, my goal is to make us irrelevant. I don't want us to be sustainable. I want to end the Breast Cancer Welfare Association Malaysia because there will be no more breast cancer. That is my goal. Now, in order to get there, what we need to do is to be able to get every single Malaysian woman to commit to their own monthly breast self-examination, to commit to clinical breast examinations once every 3 years, to commit to mammograms once they turn 40. Yeah. And in terms of quantifying the work that we do, I can do that easily. I can do that easily because I can tell you that last year we taught breast self-examination to over 16,000 people of all genders. We conducted 7,000 clinical breast examinations, which resulted in about 315 suspicious findings, which were then navigated through the Malaysian healthcare system. I would like to see this number go down every year. I would like to have to do this less and less, which is perhaps the antithesis of what we're talking about today. But I want to be less and less sustainable because that is the end goal for us, right? But how do we get there? We get there by working together. We get there because the Breast Cancer Welfare Association can do 7,000 clinical breast examinations a year, but the National Cancer Society could probably do 7,000 a month. And that is why we partner with as many NGOs as we can. We share resources. The nurses that you see out there, Matron Datin Zainab, if you get a chance to go and say hello to her, she just celebrated her 71st birthday a couple of weeks ago. She's a retired head matron from GHKL. As soon as she handed in her resignation, at the point of ending her career there, she came straight to the Breast Cancer Welfare Association Malaysia, and she will tell you this, and she did it because perjuangan sebelum selesai, belum selesai. The fight is not yet over. So you go and you speak to her. Matron Salima, who's sitting next to her, turns 70. Oh, she turned 70 a couple of weeks ago. So, between the both of them, they have a wealth of experience that we willingly share for free with other NGOs. We train nurses, not just in NGOs, but in public and private hospitals all over Malaysia on how to provide more effective clinical breast examinations. And you're right, there is a lot of fighting because it is a very, very small pie. As many of you who work in the non-profit industry will know, everybody's fighting for the same funding. And so I wish I could say that it's all roses. It isn't. I think as an NGO, what we can do is we don't gatekeep knowledge. We don't gatekeep resources. This is an open invitation to every single one of you, whether you work in a non-profit or a corporate. If you would like clinical breast examinations for your employees, they are absolutely free of charge. Come to me after this panel, and they are yours to take.
Wow. Thank you. I'd like to ask Lilianne this question and learn a little bit more from your foundation. One of the things that come out very often is the mental and physical well-being of those who, dedicate their lives to social entrepreneurship or NGOs. And even Yellow Tree, the work that we do, a lot of people ask us for the more technical and process-oriented stuff. But when we go in there, wow, we see a lot of mental breakdowns, physical breakdowns. How do we make this community more holistic, Lilianne? What can we do? Because we do not have the funding or all the resources of corporations. Help.
I'm so glad you're bringing this up because I think this is one of the key things which a lot of organizations who are, working in this space, so many spaces, I think, where there's, difficult causes, but definitely for those of us working on refugee rights and refugee protection, I think there's an added sense of stress about it because, you literally are working with people whose lives, even in Malaysia, not just in the countries they're fleeing from, but even in Malaysia, on a day-to-day basis, are at risk. And that's because of the lack of documentation for refugees and asylum seekers. People can get arrested at any point, even if they have a UNHCR card. By right, they shouldn't be if they have an HCR card, but it's not considered a legal document. And the government is, planning on issuing its own document for refugees, but it's still in the works. And until that does happen, we're actually going to see arrests of refugees and asylum seekers on a daily basis. Deportations, family separation. This is literally the types of things you see every single day. And it takes a toll, and not to mention on top of that, the levels of unbelievable, unspeakable violence which refugees have had to go through, not just in the countries where that they're fleeing from, their home countries, but even on the journeys. And I think that is absolutely critical to recognize, especially for those who don't have a choice to come by plane through legal means, and those who are forced to flee and use smugglers, those who get trafficked, the incredible level of exploitation. For women, I mean, I will tell you this very straight. In some communities, there's not a single woman who has left her homeland and her community and made that journey without incredible levels of violence. And very often, the community that I work with the most, the Rohingya community, almost every single woman has been through unspeakable violence, and they won't talk about it. And I think that this is a real challenge. Even the services that we have here in Malaysia, the WAO is starting to work with refugees, as ICMC. There's some wonderful organizations doing this work, but I think we all recognize that it's like any country, most women who go through violence will never speak about it. Even if you have that service, you'll never speak about it. What more mental health? And if it's not even in the vocabulary of most communities. And then I think for those of us who are working on those issues, even for us to develop that culture of giving ourselves that space to stop and say, are we okay? How is my team doing? Are we okay, dealing with this on a daily basis? It's taken us some time because you're always in emergency mode. You're always sort of putting yourself out there to save one more case, to get one more case through the system, to go and, make sure that somebody else is okay. And you need to harden yourself at some point to be able to be strong for somebody else. And when you do that constantly over and over again, you build up this defense mechanism, these walls, right, that to keep you strong so you can be there to protect someone else. So being that protector is not an easy thing. And we've had to institutionalize this in our own organization. And we've done that really, again, through, the vision of the partners who we're working with now. This philanthropic circle that we work with, they recognized that, and there's a few of us who are working together in a collective, including Yayasan Chowkit and ourselves and some others, and one of the partners there is Humankind. Humankind actually is usually based in this building, and they're a partner of ours now. So now Humankind is actually, being supported to support a few of us, which is fantastic, and there's a service now that any of my staff can call, and myself as well. We can call them totally anonymously. It doesn't have to go through the management or anything. It's literally a service where we can call and get a counseling session. And also we're helping to facilitate them to come out to the communities we work with. So that recognition, I think, is so critical, but it's a journey for a lot of organizations who are working in this very kind of urgent space all the time, and then just stopping and saying, my God, are we all okay doing this? And, what is it that we can do institutionally to support each other as we support other people in the communities?
Thank you, Lilianne. So being strong, thank you. Being strong for others, for those of you who want to embark in this area of social causes, something to think about. And for those of you still in it or already in it, to continue asking yourselves, how can your community support you and your entity support you? I wish we could go longer with this panel because we're really actually just scratching the surface. So I'm just going to close this session by asking each one of you, maybe we'll start with Shao-Lyn, if there was one word that you can share so that the audience can go out thinking about it, if they do want to go into this space, what is important? Just one word that you'd like them to bring out with them if they wanted to go from passion to purpose and go into social causes sustainably. One word.
Okay.
I'll give you two if you can't think of one.
Okay lah. Maybe can I take 2 words?
Yes,
two
you can.
words.
I'll be nice.
So we always get asked, what do I do if I have black fingers? So black fingers is something that's always mentioned a lot. And I think I use black fingers because with gardening, bringing it back to growing, it's actually all about skill. Nobody really has black fingers that will kill plants on the go, Gardening and growing is actually a learned skill, and I think with also growing a social enterprise or making it sustainable, it's also about getting skills, business skills, interrelationship skills, financial skills, to be able then to run it better. So I feel that it is something that can be learned. Everything can be learned as long as you dedicate your time to it, you commit to it, and something good can happen out of it. So nobody has black fingers. That's what I would like to say.
Wonderful. Thanks, Shao-Lyn. Sumitra, can I challenge you one word?
Capacity.
I like that.
You need to have the capacity at the right time of your life in order to be able to go into a social cause. It's all well and good if you're idealistic, 20-something, wanting to go into social causes to change the world. I think it's fantastic. I can tell you from personal experience that it doesn't pay the mortgage, that you will need to cut back on holidays drastically and all of that. But capacity is a strange animal, right? It's different for different people. And capacity can be financial, it can be emotional, it can be physical. Find that space in your life when you are ready to go into a social cause. And I think you should also recognize that you are allowed to leave that cause whenever you want and take a break for as long as you want and need until you find that capacity within you again.
Lovely. Thank you, Sumitra. Lilianne.
Quite challenging to find a word, but I think my word would be resonance. Resonance, because I think it covers so many things, you know. One thing is recognizing a need, recognizing diversity, but it's something else to go beyond recognition and actually become a space where a need can have resonance, and that you actually are resonating not just a need, but people's perspectives, people's voices, and then you become a chamber for others, right? I think that is sort of how we see ourselves. We're sort of, creating ourselves to be a vehicle for incredibly marginalized and invisible people who are made to be invisible by so many means, right? By the fact of war, the fact of fleeing, the fact of lack of recognition, the fact of having been forced to always be outside the law. There's so much lack of recognition. And I think even beyond the recognition part, it's just holding that safe space for people, right? Holding the safe space where people can actually even come and start, sometimes not even to talk and tell their stories, it's just sometimes just to be and be safe. And that, to me, is resonance, right? Building that space where you can have protection and recognition, and when someone's ready to start telling you their story and start being ready to even be helped, you're there for them. So that, to me, I think is absolutely important. So whatever cause it is that you're passionate about or that you're driven to, there is a way to do that, right? To just be that space where people can come together and feel safe to start something.
Thank you, Lilianne. So resonance, black fingers, and capacity. I had a friend who told me when I was in this, started going into this area, I cannot put passion inside the petrol pump. So I was like, what do you mean by that? It means that it takes more than passion to really, drive what we need to do as women, because actually almost more than 90% of people in this industry, NGOs and social enterprises, are women. We do have the capacity. We do need to understand our capacity to move forward or go into the area. So I encourage you and invite you to please follow these women either on social media and all their foundations and where they're doing, social work, to connect with them if that's okay. Because honestly, we're really scratching the surface, and I hope we can continue to talk more about this area, because it's a growing, it's needed today in this world where we're mixing business as well as social causes. So I hope each one of you got something out of our panel, and we really look forward to speaking with you outside this panel. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon, and take care of yourselves. Thank you so much.